My name's Clay Graham. I'm from Centigrade, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how Centigrade is using a codeless, semi-fungible token pattern to tokenize carbon and other ecological benefits on the XRP blockchain. So what is Centigrade? Centigrade is a new company that was founded with the help of Ripple and Rocky Mountain Institute to really help facilitate and to optimize the creation of tokenized products around the ecological benefits. It's a SaaS platform, so the idea is just like any other kind of enterprise SaaS platform out there, this is a SaaS platform intended to help project owners participate in voluntary carbon markets. It provides a structured process to bring fidelity to these projects, which has been a gigantic challenge in the ecological benefit space, and provides helpers and a clear business process that can be automated that really kind of guides these project owners, kind of puts them on rails for the process automation around collecting all of the data necessary to make an ecological project valuable. And so that's data-driven, right? We don't want to make this about enforcement. We want to make this about providing great data that makes these ecological projects more valuable. And then finally, it's also a public listing service that once these project owners are participating in bringing visibility into their projects, all kinds of market participants can then have visibility and also price discovery. So we want the pricing of these ecological benefits to come out of the quality of the information that these project owners are defining. So it's based on the Interwork Alliances, which is part of the Global Blockchain Business Council. They have a subset of work they've been doing around the tokenization of ecological benefits. So what you're going to see here today is essentially an implementation of that IWA tokenization process. So you're going to learn a lot about how the industry is looking about how we tokenize these kinds of ecological benefits. So you'll see lots of arrows. There's big arrows going on here. And what they're basically doing is saying, this is not just about monetizing carbon or ecological benefits. It's about a business process. And it's about a business process that has multiple participants, collaborators. And so the core collaborators in this business process are the project owners, and they're the managers. They're kind of the data wranglers. They're bringing in all the data about the project, where it's, who owns it, what it's about, and they're kind of making sure the life cycle of this project over time becomes more valuable through additional data. There's distributors, and they're kind of the money handlers. They're the changers, and they're the gatekeepers of the organization of these tokenized assets that ultimately end up out in the wild. So the flow of funds to external parties is managed by these distributors. And then buyers represent external parties to the organization minting that are external, who are minting tokens. The buyers are buying them, or they're receiving them. They have some sort of an interest outside of the organization, whether that's putting those tokens onto marketplaces or even just retiring them. And then finally, the goal of every ecological token out there is to be eliminated and taken out of circulation. That's retirement. And all retirement is it's essentially like a burn wallet. It says, this is the end of the line for this token. There's no other place it can go. And the party that transfers it into that retirement phase is the one who gets to claim the ecological benefit. They're the ones that said, I did the good thing. So that's kind of the role set. So there's a number of actions and activities that happen as part of this process in the IWA phases. So project owners create projects and establish the data foundations for the fidelity of the provenance. The provenance is key to these projects. Knowing who is involved, why they're involved, what they believe they're going to accomplish. Putting that stake in the ground is a key part of what makes these projects valuable and trustworthy. Distributors create new tokens through trust lines. So we're using the XRP paradigm of a trust line to mint new tokens against a specific vintage, in other words, a year that the project exists, and the set of benefits that that project believes they're going to be delivering. So that's how the core tokenization occurs, is through this concept of trust lines, and that's where the SFT, the semi-fungible token concept, really comes to life. So as a project matures and the ecological benefits are realized, project owners provide proof, and that's what is the method of our collection, what's all the data. They might even have telemetry from IoT devices, but they provide clear proof that's verifiable that a project is delivering on its intentions. And as they do that, as those claims are verified, tokens are minted and received by the distributor. So the distributor now can say, yes, this is all real, and usually that includes a verification phase with an external verification party and external verification contract. That is when a token is fully available to be let off into the wild, to actually have a life. And that life may end very quickly. It might be retired immediately by the party to claim the benefit, or it might go out into a marketplace if it's early in its life cycle to gain more value. So buyers receive those tokens realizing these ecological benefits, and that trading or retirement happens, and from that point on, tokens are transferred to a retirement wallet where they're burned. So you can look at this as a set kind of swim lanes where we have a set of identities represented by wallets that are, clear signed activities. And on the blockchain, we have specific transactions with transactors around the phases of this project, whether it's generating the provenance with the ecological project program, which is kind of the foundation of what the project is supposed to do, creating the trust line, which is the vintage and the set of benefits that are established for a specific year, asserting claims where the project manager is presenting proof of the methodology and all of the data that supports that. Then, once those claims are asserted, the buyer receives those tokens. And you can see here what I'm conveniently leaving out is the stuff in the white lines, which is some of the most important stuff, which is that these are being verified through a verification contract between the project and some sort of external verification entity. So once that occurs, those tokens can go out into the wild. They're realized. People believe in these as a potential ecological benefit, and they can either be retired or they can go out into the marketplace. So when we show this kind of like buyer, there could be a whole life cycle around marketplaces, et cetera. But the key thing here is there are three kind of key elements in this life cycle, which is the identity, the transaction, and what is the metadata being persisted to the interplanetary file system in an immutable form along the way. So let's double click a little bit into the object model of the IWA data model, just so you kind of understand what's in each piece. So when a project is incepted, the inception of it, it's kind of like the groundbreaking ceremony. The project owner claims what they believe the project is going to be, what is the actual real locations of the project. There might even be titles that they supply of the property, that they own the property. What's the geographic location? And what are the benefits that they believe this project is going to provide? Benefits don't only end in carbon. They may also have synergistic effects with local communities. They might be kind of like, this is kind of like a farm-to-table kind of setup where an industrial producer is very closely tracking the carbon associated with their process so that the team that's actually doing the sequestration and the community they're in has a synergistic effect. So it's not just about capturing carbon, it's also all these kind of network effects around ecological benefits. And what is the methods that are going to be used to actually verify it? So, clear, actionable methodology for how we're going to prove that these benefits are going to occur. So the second part of this is kind of the creation of the token, the minting of the token, and that's called a core carbon principles token. So that's when the trust line is created, what are all the claims that are associated with that specific vintage? Just 1 year. The first, let's say the project is intended to be for 10 years. The first year may not have as many synergistic effects as the second or third, and they may be doing data collection differently. So you separate that out by vintage and you say, for this vintage, what are the claims that are being proposed? And then when a project owner can prove that those claims have been met, they make assertions, and that's how tokens are minted. And all of this data, any of this green stuff you see, is being persisted in, as an immutable data set into IPFS. And then finally, retirement. So the interesting thing about SFTs is, and the reason we use them is, if you were to create all of these tokens as NFTs, it would be very difficult for a marketplace to price them, because most marketplaces price NFTs individually, right? One Bored Ape is different price than another. But by making them an SFT, we're saying we have a group, and that group has a common set of benefits in a certain year. So we are going to value these 1,000 tokens identically. And so that makes them available for marketplaces. That makes it available. But we don't actually realize which IDs. We just think of them as X units until retirement. And then once an actual token is retirement, that's when its specific ID is realized and can never be reused. And so that's a really important concept in conjunction with this SFT pattern. So how does this look in terms of transaction flow? This is a use case, and it's very, very small and limited. But imagine a project owner is doing an assertion, and they had 4 units that represents 4 metric tons of carbon. And they asserted their claims. They've got all the documents that they did it, and they assert those claims. So 4 tokens end up in the distributor's wallet. Well, the distributor goes through verification, and all of those tokens are cleared. And now they want to actually send them to external parties, but they don't send all of them. So they send 1 token to a buyer and 2 tokens to a trader. Well, the buyer just wants to retire them. So the first thing the buyer does is actually send those tokens to a retirement wallet. So in the end, the buyer has 0 in their wallet, and the distributor has 1. And in the second use case, the trader wants to actually put their token onto a market. And our first market enabling partner is Thallo. Just a quick shout out to Thallo. I don't want to steal too much thunder, but there's going to be an announcement next, probably in like a week and a half, 2 weeks, at an ecological conference about our relationship with Thallo. And they're a market maker. They're a market enabler. So a trader in this situation would then send or bridge those tokens to a marketplace and enable that token to gain value over time as the token matures. So I'm going to do a quick demo. I think, yeah, I've got time. I've got time to demo this. Let's see if this works. If it doesn't work, and I'm not seeing the video, does anyone in the back have the video? If we can't do the video, maybe I have it on here somewhere. Oops. I don't know if I can show the video. Sorry guys, I'm showing you Amazon. It's not coming up here. It was before. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do then, because the video is not coming up, I'm just going to kind of talk to the stuff. This all works. I wanted to give a demo, but we'll kind of get into waxy poetic and do some questions instead. So this approach is intended to be blockchain and persistence agnostic. In other words, this can work on any blockchain. This is a pattern. And the IWA intends for it to be in all kinds of places. So if you like this pattern, you want to, by all means, this is an open pattern, so this is something that is going to be a commonplace in its approach. Verifications and forwards ex ante are kind of a problem that I'm not really addressing in this presentation very well. Essentially, verifications and forwards are how do we get external participants to actually provide verification that all this data is true. And so there's a whole bunch in this presentation that I'm not talking about in terms of both verification and how a token may be not fully realized and gain value over time, which is kind of how to really inject new value into the space, into the ecosystem, because projects want to be able to kind of float their projects, and then as they become more mature, their tokens become more valuable, and that's how they get funding. So it's kind of a way to essentially create a Kickstarter kind of environment by using forwards, and I'm not addressing that in this presentation very well. Opening up ecological markets and the business process around them and improving visibility, it'll help really grow the availability of quality voluntary carbon markets. So by bringing this stuff forward, I mean, if you look at carbon markets right now, it's very opaque. So this is about really bringing visibility and awareness so that all this stuff is verifiable. I mean, there's all kinds of talk about right now in the ESG space around how do we make sure these projects are not frauds, essentially. So that's really what Centigrade is trying to bring, is this kind of high fidelity and also a path to fidelity for project owners that may not have all the tools at the start. How do we help them and show them how to bring fidelity to their projects? So I want to kind of paint a cyberpunk kind of vision for you for a second. Imagine it's the year 2057, and instead of like that dystopian Blade Runner vision of there aren't any trees anymore and everything, is a wasteland, I want to imagine a possible future, alternative future, where there are thousands and thousands of hectares of forest that no human being has set foot in for 20 years because it represents generational wealth. That's the future I want to envision. And if you look at us as a species, I want to see our influencers like Mr. Beast, instead of like driving around in Lambos, I want to see them burning thousands of tokens, retiring thousands of tokens on air as the way they flex. That's the future I want. And if you look at the history of money as a collateralized debt obligation, we've commonly made that things like shiny rocks. What happens when we decide to actually value our values? When we transition from shiny rocks to what are the things that will help us progress as a species? That's, this is the very beginning of that alternative, maybe overly optimistic, but I'd rather try to make the future that I hope for than the dystopian one I see in the movies. So that's what this is about to me. And with that, I wish I could have shown the demo. And this all works, by the way. But I want to open it up for questions since we have a little bit of time. If there's any questions?
I have a microphone here.
Thanks, Clay. That was super, super helpful.
Sure.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you view carbon credits with maybe expiration dates in the context of tokens, right? So let's say that I bought one, and I'm assuming that some of them expire, some of them don't. If it expires in like 2 years and I have it in my wallet, will you remove it from my wallet? Like, how does that work? I guess that tension between, the decentralization component of I have a token, it's mine, but it also expires, right? So how does that work?
So right now we don't have a concept of expiration, and in fact, what we hope is that a token, as it matures and more information is brought in, that it has a long life cycle. We do believe that for a token to really be meaningful, and once it's realized, it needs to be retired. It needs to be taken off of the open market, and it needs to be realized, and whoever needs to claim that they actually did the work of that benefit. So we don't have a specific expiration associated with the tokens in our pattern right now, but we do believe there's a general emphasis and a kind of a natural incentive to retire tokens. Yes?
We actually have the video available.
Oh, great. Let's try to do it. Well, we got time for it. Okay, let's do it. Can we get it up? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yay. Okay. Okay, great. It's at ×2 because if I made you go through all this, it'd drive you crazy. So we're going to the wallets, and you can see here we're creating a set of wallets. It doesn't show you create all of them, but essentially you're creating wallets on the fly, and these wallets represent the different identities of the participants. So I'm going to create one so you see, but now we've got all of the wallets, and these are all the different roles. And you select the wallet that you're using for the specific role, and a user can have multiple roles or just one and collaborate. But the core roles are essential to the business process. So we're creating a fake project. I've got a fake little generator, so don't expect the data in here to be anything more than gibberish. But we've got a World's Forest project here, worldsforest.org. And now that this is kind of that model that I presented, the ecological project program. So minting on the blockchain happens, and now it's on IPFS. And so that's immutable. It's there forever, and the transaction can be seen clearly on the blockchain with the specific handling of the projects. So you have all of the metadata associated with it in the memos. So now we're going to set up the issuer account for the project owner, and this kind of establishes who, as you're doing this, as you're creating these account sets, it's both establishing how trust lines are going to be created, as well as what are the roles of the project. So that's how the domain, the worldsforest.org, gets associated with it. And now we're going to go into the distributor role, and the distributor is going to do all of the stuff associated with creating the trust line. So once that account set has been made, the distributor has the ability, and we can see that that distributor has an account set. So all this is going on in the blockchain. And now we're going to go back to projects, and finally we're going to associate the burner wallet. And again, that's just by creating an account set, and all this metadata that you see here is what ends up on the blockchain. Right? So now we're going to create a trust line. This is how tokens are minted. So the distributor is the one responsible. So they choose a set of IDs that they're going to represent in the project. And so we can see here 22 tons of carbon with the vintage 2019, and the benefits of release reduction are added to that specific trust line. That's what essentially all a trust line is. A token is a certain vintage, and what are its benefit claims. And there we are, it's on the blockchain, and we've got the token, it's minted. So this token symbol, this WARMXS, is essentially generated on the fly. And now we're going to actually add the retirement role, the actual burn wallet, to the trust line as well. Right? So now everybody can participate in this trust line. I do have some crits on the way trust lines work. I think there's too many actions that are necessary on trust lines for participants to be part of the business process around trust lines. I don't really understand why, to be able to receive tokens, you need to authorize a trust line. So now we're asserting claims, and the evidence was actually presented by the project owner. We're in the project owner role. And as you can see this, all the data around the conveyance, which is the proof, conveyance is proof in this world, is presented. And now 16 tokens have been proven and have been sent from the project owner to the distributor wallet. And those are the IDs associated with it. So we can see that there's the proof. And I made this up, but this would be real data associated with the claim. And the CO2 release reduction, right? So there's the transaction for payment, and that went to the distributor wallet with all the way back to the actual project itself, which is the NFT. So you have full traceability on the blockchain back to the provenance of the project. And then we're going to add the burner wallet. And this is going to allow a certain token to be burnt. And so now the buyer is going to actually end up being able to burn. And there's the buyer role. So we've added a buyer who's going, the distributor added the buyer to this trust line. And we're going to actually send some tokens to the buyer wallet. See, we've got the buyer that's been associated with the trust line. We're going to choose how many we send to them. And there's the carbon trader. And once we approve that transaction, they've received the tokens. And we're going to switch to that buyer wallet. And then we're going to retire tokens. There we go. They've received payment. All right. And let's retire. Come on, let's retire. Yes, retire. That's the goal of every token. That's the heaven. That's heaven for a token. Okay. And there we go. We've got 2 required credits. We did it, the demo. Okay, great. We still have 1 minute for questions. Thank you, team, you guys rock. Thank you, team. You guys are superstars. Okay, got a minute. We got 56 seconds. Question. Questions out there? You have to be curious about this. I'm so excited about it. Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, I just want to say thanks to everybody for giving me Centigrade a chance to present this. We're super psyched about what we're doing. And look, there's going to be way more coming from Centigrade over the next year. We're building this stuff out. We've got an API. If you're into Carbon and you think you can use any of the functionality you saw for any kind of applications, reach out to us. We have an API. And we really want to start engaging devs. We're also hiring. If you're into this and you want to make this your mission, get in contact with me. Thanks a lot. Thanks for letting me share.